How's it going, guys, and welcome back to Beyond the Arc. And in the NBA, the finals are raring on. It's been very, very entertaining so far. We've got a series on our hands. Now, I'm probably not going to be doing like reviews of every single game the day after it happens, because if I'm honest with you, I kind of don't really have the time. So bi-gamely, like once every 2 games, I'll be providing some little breakdowns of what I think has been going on over the NBA Finals, how my predictions have been changing a little bit. Obviously, I've said that I thought Denver would win in about 5 or 6. Do I think that that's still going to happen with the series tied at 1 apiece heading into the 2 games in Miami? Who knows? But again, it's been a very entertaining NBA Finals, and like I said in the last video, plenty of stakes on the line as well. Who is going to win the chip? Is it going to be Jokic or is it going to be Butler? Well, to be fair, with the way the Miami Heat have been playing so far, it's not really Butler's team at the moment, but we'll get straight on into it. But before we get into it, make sure you are leaving a like on the video, subscribe if you are new, keep sharing the content around. Like I said, the last few videos have done pretty decent for my standards at least, so keep sharing the videos out, and if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. But this is my game 1 and game 2 review, and we'll start with game 1, which Denver ended up winning by a bit of a landslide. So, coming into the first game of the finals, the Miami Heat had won game 1 away from home in each of the 3 series that they've played in the Eastern Conference leading up to this finals. However, Denver, they're undefeated at home throughout the whole of the playoffs, so, you know, something's got to give. Is Miami going to win game 1 yet again, or will Denver continue their unbeaten streak? And it was Denver that set the pace really, really quickly, and that's the one thing that I kind of noted down when I was watching the game the other night. Denver came out all guns blazing, and Miami, they just couldn't really answer up until the final quarter, really, where they properly started to actually play, but at that point they were down by like 20, so the comeback ultimately was way too short. They led by 17 to Denver at halftime, and Jokic, despite only shooting 12 shots from the field, his prints was stamped all over this game because of all of the assists that the guy was just dishing out left, right and centre. He barely had to shoot to have an impact on the game because he was just making sure that the rest of his teammates had a greater impact really than he did. Jokic ended up finishing with a triple-double, 14 assists as well in that game. And that's mainly due to the fact that the rest of his players, I don't want to call them role players, because if I'm honest with you, I think if you put Jamal Murray on his own team, he could be like an all-star level player. But, you know, the likes of Jamal Murray, Michael Porter, Caldwell Pope, they were taking their shots, they were draining them. Jamal Murray ended up finishing with 26, which was the second most in the for the Denver Nuggets, behind Jokic's 27. And Aaron Gordon, special mention to him. At the start of the game, after the first quarter, if the NBA Finals ended after 1 quarter, you were saying that Aaron Gordon would be the Finals MVP, because this guy was going to work inside. I don't think that this guy wanted to miss inside the paint in the first quarter. He kind of like trailed off a little bit afterwards, but Aaron Gordon, he came with a bit of a vengeance. I don't really know why. Maybe Dwayne Wade was in the crowd watching his Miami Heat team, and Aaron Gordon had flashbacks to 2016's dunk contest, and he went in. But to be fair, Aaron Gordon's dominance, especially in the first quarter, was mainly due to the kind of like the small ball lineup that Erik Spoelstra went with in the first game, and obviously he did adjust it. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But, you know, coming into game 1, Spoelstra kept with the same team that kind of closed out games against Boston, and that's it in the Eastern Conference Finals, with the likes of Gabe Vincent, Max Strus and Cody Martin starting the games, Kevin Love being on the bench, Cody Zeller coming in, you know, trying to negate the Jokic threat when Bam wasn't on the court. That ultimately didn't really work, and, you know, with the small ball lineup, with Caleb Martin playing at power forward, the team just wasn't really able to kind of stop the Denver Nuggets, especially in the first quarter, especially in the first half. So yeah, Denver were able to dominate inside. Miami ultimately weren't able to impose themselves at all, really, especially up until the final quarter, only taking 2 free throws all game, which for a neutral fan watching the game, I love to see, you know, the fast-paced action. I don't like it when loads of free throws are being called because, you know, it just breaks up the game, it slows it down, it's not as good. But for a Miami point of view, only taking 2 free throws is absolutely mental. It's the lowest free throw tally of any team in an NBA Finals game. It's only the second time this season that Jimmy Butler was unable to get to the free throw line, and that's in that's counting 80 plus games. So fair play to Denver, good defense as well, and also good defense from the 3-point line, guarding the free. You know, Miami shot 13 for 39 from free, and that included Max Strus not even making a 3 in 9 attempts. A lot of his 3-point shots that he attempted in game 1 were very open, and yet he was still missing them. Was that due to maybe the fatigue? You know, Miami just coming off of a 7-game series against Boston and then having to travel to Denver, where obviously, you know, if you've been watching any of the coverage, or if you're well clued up on any of like NBA Twitter or NBA news, you know how high the altitude is in Denver. 5,000 feet plus above sea level compared to Miami's like 6 feet. So obviously it was a tough game 1 for Miami to come into, and obviously that could maybe explain a few of the poor shooting nights that they ended up having. It could also maybe explain why Jimmy Butler wasn't able to kind of put his stamp on the game like he usually is able to do, and to be fair, that kind of carried over into game 2 as well. You know, Butler only took 14 shots in game 1, and that was kind of like, he was kind of like doing what Jokic was doing, yet Jokic's guys were able to, you know, knock down the shots. Jokic obviously finishing with 14 assists. Butler ended up with 7, but probably should have had more because he was finding his guys open, but they just weren't pulling through. But equally, I don't get why Butler wasn't trying to, you know, make more of a statement in this finals game, because we know how good Jimmy Butler can be in the playoffs. So why he wasn't taking as many shots, I have no idea. But equally, he was able to take the double teams and find his open man. And if he can do that more in the playoffs, especially in Miami in games 3 and 4, maybe Miami could take a game or 2 in Miami. So yeah, and a lot of people after game 1 were saying that this was going to be dominant for Denver. Obviously Denver, we talk about how Miami struggled shooting. Denver only hit 8 threes in game 1 out of 27 shots, so they didn't shoot particularly amazing from beyond the arc as well in game 1. A lot of their points came, like I said, inside, you know, the 2-point jumpers from Jamal Murray that he was hitting as well, off the screens from Nikola Jokic, they were helping as well. So they didn't have to shoot many threes to dominate and beat Miami. So a lot of people were thinking, you know, maybe this is just going to be an absolute dominant show from Miami. But I tweeted after game 1 saying that, you know, Miami only got to the line twice. Well, not even well, I guess twice. They had a pair of free throws. So does that mean they got to the line once or twice? Answers on a postcard. Butler only took 14 shots. Everyone else was bricking, and Miami still only lost by 11. So I thought that it wasn't going to be as, you know, dominant as everybody else was saying. You know, loads of people were saying, yeah, this is going to be Denver in 4, maybe Denver in 5. I still had faith in the Miami Heat, and the Miami Heat repaid my faith back in game 2. And let me tell you, this is exactly what the NBA playoffs is all about. Long streaks of points scored by both teams, both sides led by 10 plus in the first half. Just shows how the momentum was able to switch between both teams, and both sides played some really, really good basketball as well. And in the end, Miami ended up winning by 3, fending off a late Denver comeback. I think the main thing to notice from Game 2 compared to Game 1 is Denver's production and the shots that they were able to create. Nikola Jokic, like I said, only took 12 shots in Game 1, was able to get 14 assists and set up his guys. Jokic took 28 shots in Game 2 and only had 4 assists. So obviously, he was still scoring. Like, he ended up with 40 points, still a lot of rebounds, so still a big game from the Joker, the potential Finals MVP, you gotta say, if the Nuggets can pull through and win this one. But he wasn't able to kind of set up his players as he was able to do in the first game. Michael Porter Jr. only ended up with 5 points. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope with 6. Aaron Gordon with around about 12, I think it was. I haven't properly wrote that down. And then Jamal Murray only had 18, and that included 2 late threes as well in the game. So up until around about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Murray only had about 10-12 points. So whilst Jokic was able to properly, you know, assert himself a little bit more than he was in game 1 in terms of scoring points, the fact that he wasn't able to, you know, set up his teammates meant that Miami were able to kind of, take advantage of it and end up winning. Now, does this mean that the key to defeating the Denver Nuggets is to let the 2-time MVP, possible 3-time MVP, depending on how your opinions are on Embiid and stuff, this season, to let him score more? That just sounds unbelievably mental. Like, surely the way to stop Denver is to stop Jokic's production. But if you double team Denver, if you double team Jokic, if you put more people on him, he's just going to find players. Yes, he only got 4 assists, but those 4 assists, I'm thinking the alley-oop to Aaron Gordon, the touch pass to Aaron Gordon again, for him to lay it up. The guy finds his players so well. The long pass to Jamal Murray for the 3 to cut it down to a 3-point game right at the end of the game. Yeah, he is probably one of the smartest players in the NBA, so if you double team him, he's going to find the open man 9 times out of 10. But if you don't and you let him kind of shoot, he might miss more than some of the players that he finds open will. So it's a very interesting kind of situation to talk about, and one of the main reasons that Jokic was unable to properly find his guys was because of the adjustments that Erik Spoelstra brought in for this game. Kevin Love, bringing him into the starting lineup after he got DNP coach's decision for games 6, 7 against the Boston Celtics, and then again a couple nights ago in game 1 against the Denver Nuggets, bringing him in, and yes, he didn't shoot it that well, only shot 2 of 9, 6 points, ended up with 10 rebounds, but 2 steals in there as well, and the defense he was able to play, the extra height that was able to be brought in to the Miami starting 5 meant that the likes of Aaron Gordon weren't dominant as much in the paint as he was, especially in the first quarter of game 1. Also bringing in Kevin Love, and I said this in the last video that I made, bringing someone in who has that finals pedigree. Every time that Kevin Love has made the postseason, the 5 times he's made the playoffs, he's made it to the NBA Finals, the 4 times with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then this 1 time with the Miami Heat. So Kevin Love, he knows what to do in the finals, and that's kind of what the Miami Heat have over Denver. Other than Caldwell Pope for the Denver Nuggets, this Miami team, most of them knows how to act in the NBA Finals. Most of these guys were in the 2020 squad that got to the NBA Finals in the bubble. And then obviously the likes of Kevin Love and Kyle Lowry, who have actually won NBA championships. They know how to do it in the playoffs. So bringing in Kevin Love into the starting 5 not only provides, a player that is quality, in my opinion. He's one of the best outlet passers in the NBA. A decent defender, can shoot as well, even though he didn't do it as well in the game last night. But bringing in someone like Kevin Love to kind of almost act as like a veteran head for the guys who don't really know how to do it as much in the playoffs. The likes of Max Strus and Gabe Vincent, who had way better games in game 2. Gabe Vincent led the Miami Heat in scoring with 23. He shot 4 for 6 from the 3-point line. Max Strus, like I said earlier, could potentially be like a game changer in there in terms of the fact that he had an awful shooting night, but he was hot from the beginning in game 2. Yes, kind of cooled down a little bit as the game went on, but still 4 threes is very helpful for a Miami team who does rely a lot on the three-pointer, one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the NBA. Duncan Robinson as well, off the bench, had a period in the 4th quarter where he scored 8 straight for the Miami Heat. He was hitting threes, he was driving inside, he was showing why the Miami Heat paid him $90 million in the 2020 offseason. Showing why he is, why he deserves a place on an NBA roster, even though his defense is a little bit limited. He can still score, and he ended up with 10 points, 10 important points. The most of them came in the 4th quarter. And speaking of the 4th quarter, Jimmy Butler finally showing up. Like I said, didn't have as much of an impact in game 1, tried to set up his guys, was doing pretty much the same thing a lot of the time in game 2, but this time his players were actually knocking down the shots. But he came through with a couple of 3-point plays in the clutch in the 4th quarter, because that's what Jimmy Butler can do. We know that this is Jimmy Butler's team. He's the guy that can, take the lead in the 4th quarter and, pull through. But when you actually look at the the Miami Heat so far in the first 2 games, Bam Adebayo's probably been the best player for the Miami Heat in terms of stats-wise, averaging just over 23 points, double-digit rebounds, not as good of a passer as Nikola Jokic, but he's probably the second best big man passer in the NBA. I think a lot of his production's going under the radar a little bit, but, this isn't Jimmy Butler's team per se throughout the first 2 games. And I think one of the other main things is the fact that Bam Adebayo hasn't really gotten into foul trouble as much as well. Nikola Jokic is one of the most dominant players in the NBA. So you have to kind of give him the shots, because Bam Adebayo is undersized to say for a centre. He's a bit smaller than Jokic. It's obviously tough to properly defend him, but the fact that he hasn't got into foul trouble and he's able to assert himself on the offensive end is pretty good for him, because that's what he's good at. So yeah, big up to Bam for not getting into foul trouble. Speaking of foul trouble, that was kind of what went wrong for Denver, especially in the 4th quarter. They allowed Miami to get into the bonus penalty not even 3 minutes into the 4th quarter, and credit to Miami, they probably played one of the best 4th quarters I've actually ever seen coming down the stretch there, but Denver attributed to that by making stupid decisions. Contavious Caldwell-Pope, the 3-point shots that he ended up fouling on, I think he did it twice in the 4th quarter. Just stupid decisions, especially the second one where he just jumps into Kyle Lowry. And when the game is as close as it was, a 3-point margin of defeat, how costly could them foul shots be, coming into games 3 and 4 in Miami? And then finally, the main talking point: should Denver have called timeout down by 3? Got the defensive stop. About 14 seconds left. Jamal Murray brings the ball down court. I think it's a good decision to not call timeout immediately, because obviously you don't want Miami to properly set up their defense. However, when it comes to the fact that Jamal Murray tries to get open, gives it to Jokic, tries to get open, he's unable to get open, ends up stumbling a little bit all the way back, almost towards half court with about 4 seconds left. That's when you call timeout. You give yourself a little bit of a chance to draw up a play. In the end, Jamal Murray takes his shot. It's not an awful shot, but it's good defense, and it ends up missing, and Miami tie things up and go into games 3 and 4 in Miami with the game split and with home court advantage in their side. But is this a good thing? Well, it obviously is a good thing for Miami, but is this a way of concern for Denver? Now, I've always said, in terms of a 7-game series, if you're the home team, as long as you don't go down 0-2, I think you're still in the driver's seat, even though you don't have home court advantage, because the likelihood that Miami are going to win all 3 games at home, in my opinion, is very, very slim. As long as Denver can... I think even if Denver lose both of these games and go back to Denver with a 3-1 deficit, all you have to do is just win Game 5, and then the momentum's back with you a little bit ahead of Game 6. If you can nick that one away from home, you've got a Game 7 in your home court. In my opinion, it is all about the role players, though, for both teams. Like I said, I don't really count Jamal Murray as role players, but technically when you play on a team with Nikola Jokic, you're kind of a role player. The players that aren't Jimmy Butler, Nikola Jokic, and in a way Bam Adebayo as well, how will they perform? We've seen what happens when Miami go cold. Max Strus doesn't have as much of an impact, neither does Caleb Martin, Duncan Robinson. Players like that, when you don't have an impact, Denver can kind of run away with it. But equally, we've seen when Jokic isn't able to get Jamal Murray his shots, Michael Porter, Caldwell-Pope, Aaron Gordon, when they don't get their shots going, we've seen what happens with that one. So, whilst Jimmy Butler and Nikola Jokic are probably 2 of the best postseason players, I mean, Jokic just doesn't really turn it off, but Jimmy Butler has a way to turn it on when it comes to the postseason. It's all about the players around them. This is a team game, and these are 2 of the more deep teams in the NBA, probably the 2 deepest teams in the NBA, and they're kind of showing it, showing how much their impact has on their team winning. Denver has only lost 4 times this season when Jokic has recorded 10 assists, which is absolutely mental to say that he almost averaged a triple-double throughout the whole season. So you can clearly see that when Jokic is able to get his players going, and when Denver are able to get their shots going by players that aren't Nikola Jokic, they win games. We got to remember, when Jokic put up 53 points, I think it was a 50-piece in the game against the Phoenix Suns, it came in a losing effort. So, like I said earlier, is the key to stopping the Denver Nuggets to allow Jokic to shoot more? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I think it's a very interesting kind of debate to have. And also let me know what you guys think is going to happen in games 3 and game 4. Like I said, I don't think it's the end of the world if Denver lose both of them, but equally I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to be going back into game 5 in Denver with the scores tied at 2 apiece. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know how you guys are feeling about the NBA Finals so far. I'll be potentially bringing you a video either after game 3, definitely after game 4 though. Thank you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.